All right, now let's move on. We're still going to talk about some playoff topics, but we're going to talk about players that are either getting injured or they don't have a timetable for return, and you should probably consider dropping them come playoff time because kind of like our previous topic about taking up that roster spot. You can probably get some better value by just moving on from that player or like at least streaming that spot. So I'll talk about a player that's been on literally been on my mind for a long time. Victor Oladipo from the Miami Heat. So, he was kind of on like a trading block for a long time when he was in Houston. He finally got traded to Miami Heat, and then he played like 4 decent games, and then he got injured. And even like a week later, there's still no timetable for his return, and he's had a bad history of knee problems. So it is tough depending on like how many teams are in your league. Even for a 12-team league, I really want to keep Victor Oladipo, but throughout the season, he's already missed like 19 games. He's played 33. So he's basically missed like half the games, like not half, like maybe 30% of the games of the season. And it's just way too unpredictable. Like, sure, his season stats are okay. His season stats from Houston and Miami, they're around 20 points, 5 rebounds, 4.6 assists. But the problem is that when he does play, 40% field goal percentage, 75 free throw percentage, 3 turnovers. So even though he plays and he gets you those counting stats, he actually hurts you a lot. And one, I don't want to wait for him to come back. And two, when he does come back, I feel like he's just going to hurt me anyways. So if there are certain players that are blowing up this week or like going into the playoffs, you could consider streaming or like dropping Victor Oladipo.
Yeah, especially come playoff time. I mean, like we mentioned in the previous segment that playoffs should be starting for most teams in the next 3 weeks. Who knows how long he's going to be out with his injury history and injury past. It's hard to gauge, and especially with him not being reliable, and with the Miami Heat being such a deep team, they don't really need to rush him back at all in real life. So, they have other options. It's not like he's a main piece that needs him in order for the team to succeed.
Definitely. Well, I guess I'll go next. There's this player that I just caught my eye, which I think it's really gonna raise some questions. And this player is John Collins from the Atlanta Hawks. And his last game that he played was on March 30th. And right now he's still out from an ankle injury. And apparently a couple of days ago, the Hawks GM came out and said, oh, he's doing some on-court non-contact work, and he's out indefinitely. And with that, coming to playoff time, Hawks, I don't know how they're going to play him, because when he comes back, chances are he's going to have some sort of minutes restriction. So will we get 20 minutes John Collins, 25 minutes John Collins compared to 30 plus minutes every game? That's something that like all you John Collins owners got to think about.
Yeah, I think this is a really good, interesting player that you brought up there, Sherman, because I think compared to Oladipo, Collins is a much bigger part of the Hawks. So, in a sense, they might need to, I wouldn't say rush him back, but be more flexible in terms of his timetable for return. But like you said, minutes restriction is not something that any fantasy playoff team would like to see John Collins be under as well. So definitely keep an eye on that. Very, very good player and interesting player to bring up there.
Yeah, especially because if you want to win your fantasy league, you need to win the first round. And with the first round coming just around the corner, like sure, he may come back in that second week, but you got to make sure that you win the first week first.
Yeah.
Yeah, and with so many injuries now for this season, your injured list or injured reserve could already be occupied, and Collins would take up another roster spot that could be replaced by a streamer. So that's definitely something you need to take into consideration. I guess I'll go next. This player that has caught my eye for all the wrong reasons. He's currently rostered 97% on Yahoo Fantasy Basketball. So he's only played 2 out of those last 10 games. He's a bit of a older player. I think it's in the twilight of his career. So he's becoming an unrestricted free agent at the end of the season. So I don't think he would, rush back. His team's currently outside of a playoff spot. He's actually been out due to a toe infection since the 29th of March and only recently came back on the 11th. So this player is from the Toronto Raptors, Kyle Lowry. So he is somebody that I don't foresee being very reliable the next 1 or 2, even 3 weeks. He hasn't been consistent all year, and with Toronto being, 2 games behind Chicago for the last playoff spot in the play-in tournament, I don't foresee the Raptors rushing him back. On top of that, they have other options in Gary Trent Jr., Malachi Flynn, and Fred VanVleet as well. So even though he's still heavily rostered right now, I do foresee, other owners that have Lowry to consider dropping him for the upcoming playoffs, which is, the next couple of weeks. And there's no telling when he's coming back. And even when he does come back, he is somebody that I think is really unreliable.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Actually, really big note, really big footnote, especially for this year, is next week. So the first week of the playoffs, the Raptors play 2 games. So this is something actually maybe we could have talked about back in the strategies. Is you have to look at how many players. Actually, we kind of touched upon on it. Is how many games are that players playing in that week? So Kyle Lowry, like you mentioned, he's already resting a bit. He played like 2 games out of like 10. He played 1 game, and then he rested another game, and it wasn't even a back-to-back. So he already isn't playing that much, and the Raptors have 2 games next week. So if you rest one of them or both of them, you're basically wasting that roster spot.
Yeah, for sure. And as you said, like with the play-in tournament, and they're pretty close for that last spot. And depends on how well they play the next couple of games. If they don't have a chance of making that play-in tournament, there's a chance they might as well just not play him the big minutes and just rest him and just go full tank.
Especially with Malachi Flynn, the rookie, playing pretty well, they're going to give him more opportunities at the point guard position to see how he does. So, yeah, definitely Kyle Lowry, consider dropping him for the next couple of weeks.
And it's always tough for all of these players to let go of, especially because these 3 players that we mentioned are actually good, very good must roster players. But when the moment counts, maybe they did it really well in helping us get to this point in the season, but when it matters the most, we got to make some tough decisions.
It's the what have you done for me lately league.
Yeah. We're a bit short-sighted here. All right.